The early 20th century was a time of cutting-edge naval development. Things like submarines and aircraft were in their infancy, and nobody yet knew the best way to make use of them in warfare. This meant that for a brief window of time during and after the First World War, almost anything went in the field of naval design. There was no idea too outlandish. A cruiser with massively oversized guns and almost no armour? Yes. An aircraft carrier that required pilots to swerve around the ship's superstructure seconds before landing? It's worth a go. Perhaps even a ship that featured a flight deck on the front and the largest naval gun ever put to sea on the back? Let's give it a try. And that's the same ship as the second one. Or how about this? HMS M1, a submarine launched in 1917 that was the first to feature a large caliber gun in addition to its conventional armament of torpedoes. And there was no messing about here. Whereas future designs of what would be called cruiser submarines might have a couple of 8-inch guns, M1 and her sister boat sported a single 12-inch weapon. This was the same gun used on Britain's early dreadnought battleships, able to hurl a 400kg shell more than 15,000 yards. The logic behind the design was that in the mid-1910s, torpedoes were still relatively primitive, being both slow and inaccurate. The head of the Royal Navy's early submarine service, Commodore Sidney Hall, observed in 1915 that no case is known of a ship of war being torpedoed while underway at a range outside 1,000 yards. These apparent limitations of torpedoes gave rise to the idea that perhaps a submarine could find success with a large caliber gun, which might be more reliable and potentially allow the boat to engage targets at longer ranges than was possible with torpedoes. It was envisioned that a gun-carrying submarine could mount hit-and-run attacks, surfacing amongst enemy ships to lob a few shells at them before submerging before they could react. To test this idea, M-class boats were ordered, with M1 commissioning in 1918 while her sister ships would arrive after the conclusion of the First World War. M1 herself didn't take part in any fighting. She was deployed to the Mediterranean to work up, and there were some preliminary ideas about potentially bombarding the Dardanelles with her, but these were wisely shelved. After the war's end, M1 was joined by M2 and M3 as testbeds for the concept of putting big guns on submarines, and they would together and separately refine the various aspects that would be needed to make this kind of boat a success. And initial impressions from crews were actually quite good. They were unusually large for the time due to the need to house the gun. The M-class was 97 meters long compared to just 70 meters for the last of the preceding L-class. This created lots of internal space, making the boat quite comfortable with a well-fitted out wardroom for the officers. The addition of the gun had another advantage in that it allowed the boat to dive quite quickly for a submarine of its size. After lots of practice, crews were able to surface the boat, fire a round at a target and then submerge in around a minute, with the record time being just 35 seconds. But as you might imagine, trying to operate a battleship caliber gun from a submarine had its drawbacks too. The first of which was that a submarine was a terrible gun platform. You could barely operate it in anything like a rough sea, and trying to hit targets at ranges of more than a couple of thousand yards was essentially impossible. Most exercises were carried out with a target at around 1,200 yards or so. The barrel also had a tendency to leak, resulting in water building up inside and blowing the gun up when it was fired. The relatively short range of the M-class's gun also meant that it was now seen more as a commerce raider more than anything else, and through the 1920s they exercised towards this kind of task. On November 12, 1925, HMS M1 and M2 were assigned to take part in a simulated attack against a convoy, alongside the L-class submarines L-22 and L-23. Led by her captain, Lieutenant Commander Alec Carey, M1 sighted the convoy before 5 PM and made a series of simulated attacks, repeatedly diving and surfacing as if she was firing her gun. But at the end of the day, when M1 was ordered back to port, she never arrived. A large-scale search and rescue operation was mounted, but despite an oil slick being seen on the surface, divers could not locate M1's wreck. Her fate became clear a week later when a Swedish merchant ship, the SS Vidar, reported that it had felt an explosion of some kind when it passed through the area of M1's disappearance on November 12th. Inspection found that Vidar's bow plating was damaged, and lodged inside it was paint that matched with HMS M1. HMS M1 sank with all hands, and the exact location would remain a mystery until 1999, when it was discovered by a group of amateur divers. The submarine's hatch was found to be open, indicating that perhaps an attempt at escape had been made by the crew after the collision with the SS Vidar. After the loss of M1, the Royal Navy used her two sisters as testbeds for further ideas about how submarines could be put to use. HMS M3 was converted into a mine-laying submarine, while HMS M2 became one of the first attempts at an aircraft-carrying submarine. The gun was replaced by a hangar with a custom-built seaplane, the Parnell Peto, designed to fit inside. It was the brainchild of Max Horton, who had also served as captain of HMS M1 at an earlier point, and the idea was to improve fleet reconnaissance. A submarine carrying aircraft would be cheaper than a surface ship doing so, and the submarine might be able to do it covertly. After M2's conversion was finished, her crew began to practice surfacing the boat and launching the aircraft, striving to make this process quicker and more efficient as time went by. Soon they were able to complete it in just 5 or 6 minutes. But this carried risks. It took up to 15 minutes for M2 to become fully buoyant after surfacing, which meant that the launch process was done with the sub still sitting low in the water. On January 25, 1932, these risks came to pass, when M2 disappeared near Weymouth. After an 8-day search using cutting-edge sonar technology, M2 was found having sunk stern first with her hangar door open. The most likely explanation is that in striving for a faster and faster launch time, the hangar door had been opened just too soon and water had rushed in. Tragically, it seems that some of the crew survived the initial sinking, at least for a time. A month afterwards, a fisherman recovered a piece of wood which is now on display at the Royal Navy Submarine Museum, on which someone had etched, "Help, M2 gone down, number 2 hatch open." M2 was lost with all hands, and afterwards the British abandoned the idea of an aircraft carrying submarine as impractical and simply too dangerous. Other navies came back to the idea, however, including the French with the Surcouf, which had both guns and a seaplane hangar, and even the Japanese during the Second World War, who devised a massive submarine aircraft carrier capable of carrying 3 strike aircraft. There's a video over on the Historiograph channel about that particular creation if you are interested. Thanks for watching everyone, thanks to the Historiograph patrons for continuing to support my work here and on the main channel. Make sure you subscribe and comment below if you have any particular ideas for topics you'd like to see me cover here or on Historiograph. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you next time.